call, you heard me ask Congresswoman Skolton about the claim by fellow Michigan Representative Debbie Dingell that people in Detroit and elsewhere still don't know Harris well enough. Do you buy that? What do you think about that?
Yes, I think Debbie's exactly right. She always is in Michigan. She's an old friend of mine, so I'm a little biased. But yes, they need to get to know her. Now they know everything about Trump. And he won't fall, but he won't rise. He trades in a very, very narrow band. But something's happened in Michigan. It's been impressive. Hillary lost Michigan by 10,704 votes. And when Lavora Barnes, another friend of mine, became state party chair, she said, I'm going to knock on every one of those 10,704 doors. Michigan went for Biden by 154,000 votes. And then it just went for Gretchen Whitmer by 469,000 votes. Something's happening there. And you know what it is? In my party, the women are in charge. It's Hillary, it's Debbie Dingell, Lavora Barnes, the state party chair. There's no better state chair in this country. Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Dana Nessel, the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. They're getting it done. Now, I think Debbie is exactly right. This thing is not over at all. It's a complete toss-up. But there's really only two ways to run, unopposed or scared. And I'm terrified.
So, Tia, how important is Michigan?
I mean, all the battleground states we know are going to be close. I mean, I think that's just the name of the game. So anyone who wants to see a lot of separation for either candidate at this juncture is just not going to happen in those hotly contested states. I do think Michigan has specific problems for Harris with, the uncommitted voters that are still concerned about the war in Israel-Hamas conflict. We also know that Black voters and Latino voters are a concern in any of the battleground states. So there's still work to do. I think Harris is doing everything she can, and she's doing a lot of different types of outreach, but it's still going to be close.
It is notable, by the way. So I've asked in some of my research an open-ended question. 1,000 registered voters, tell me, what is a policy position that Kamala Harris holds? And an awful lot of people cannot answer that question. And when they do, about a quarter of them, which is the biggest response, say she's pro-choice. Her position on abortion is the one that voters know the most about. And I thought it was notable that in your interview with Congresswoman Skolton, she kept going back to that topic. That's the one where Democrats think that is the safest terrain for us. But I do think there is if I was a Democratic strategist, I might wonder, at the expense of talking about what other issues, because there were very few people in our survey who said, I know where Kamala Harris stands on the economy. I know what she wants to do to help my family. And I do think that in a state like Michigan, just betting it all on, we're going to win because voters are going to not want to go to a pro-life candidate, it's a gamble.
When was the last time we had a presidential candidate who you couldn't answer the question, what are they going to do on day one? I mean, this is to your point. I don't know that people know what a President Harris would do on day one. She's been all over the map, and I'm not just talking the flip-flops. She's been all over the place, and I think that matters to people. And to Paul's point on the introduction, she really does need to introduce herself, and I don't think she's completing that task at the moment, especially in the battleground.
You've made the argument the policy doesn't matter with this election. It's not going to decide the election, I should say.
There's two kinds of voters. There's think voters and feel voters. All the think voters have made up their minds. They have. They either like Trump or they hate Trump. And Kamala inherits all those who hate Trump. And that's more than half the country, so she should win just based on that. But now the feel voters, people who criticize Kamala, say, well, it's all vibe. That's what these folks want. Now, she's got to put more meat on the bones to create a vibe about being for middle-class economics. You heard Hillary Skolton in that interview. She didn't just talk about abortion. She talked about small business. Harris has a plan, a big $50,000. So we have a $5,000 tax break now if you start a small business. She wants to take it to $50,000. She has a plan to help first-time home buyers, $25,000. She's got plenty of policy, but she's got to make sure that the vibe is, in addition to being pro-choice, to be pro-middle class. And she talks about that well. This is why Trump is so freaked out about her having worked at McDonald's, because that signals that she's a middle-class kid who came up the all-American way. Trump was chauffeured by a limo to his elite private academy as a kid.
But he's still ahead of the economy. And I do want to get to this.
Can we fact-check McDonald's? Because I'm not sure that...
It has been fact-checked. It has
been. And are we really going there?
Yeah. I just love all the fact-checking. On this... What the Congresswoman said in that interview, she brought it back to, again, to Kristen's point, she brought it back to abortion. She said, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and the one economic issue that we can't forget, she really wanted to get that point out at the end of the interview.
Right. But you also, I mean, look, and it is true. Like you said, they know that reproductive rights is the thing that drives it home for those voters that they need. But when it comes to the economy, when it comes to issues like immigration, Donald Trump is still ahead. And I want to circle back to our
All right.
discussion that we had in the last hour about border crossings under
Yes.
Biden-Harris. It's important. So we went back and looked at CBP data. There were 8,622,559 encounters at the border to date under Biden-Harris. Encounters could mean multiple times with the same person. It could mean someone also trying to cross legally, but turned around because they just didn't meet
And
the
how many
requirements.
getaways?
But they did have, Biden-Harris has had, those are the facts, Biden-Harris has had a record number of illegal crossings. So I do want to note that. But it's important when you look at the polls and how much these issues matter to voters.
And I think that's why if you go to a battleground state, you turn on the TV to watch the Buffalo Bills play this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm printing out his pin.
Thank you.
You're going to see ads about the border, and whether it is a Trump campaign ad saying she's weak on the border, or it's going to be B-roll of Kamala Harris saying I'm going to be the one that's actually going to shut down. There's a lot of focus on this issue, especially in key battleground
But
states.
his lead is shrinking on the economy and on immigration. If I worked for Trump, I'd be panicked because he's not going to win on charm and vibe, okay? He's going to win if he does on abortion, on immigration and economy, and his lead is shrinking on that. They ought to be worried.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Melania Trump stepped back into the spotlight today, taking a position on one of the biggest issues in the upcoming election, but her position puts her at odds with her husband. That's next, along with a look at a brand new CNN documentary focusing on the former First Lady and those who held the role before her, plus shocking new accusations against one of the most celebrated country stars, Garth Brooks, accused of sexual assault and battery. The claims in a brand new lawsuit. Up next.
St. Jude, they gave it 110% every time.